The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondell.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondell. Tonight, my guest is a wonderful singer-songwriter who has a new single out entitled Lost My Country, a song she co-wrote with her dad. And we can't wait to hear more about that, so let's bring her in right now. So welcome to the show, Izzy Grace. Welcome, Izzy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, it's our pleasure. When I saw that you wrote this song with your dad, obviously it sounds like a special project. So let's talk about that song, Lost My Country, and really how it started and what it's about, and talk about the process of that, writing that with your dad.
Yeah, so this song is probably one of the most dear to my heart because it really was a family project. I like to say my mom inspired it. Me and my dad wrote it. My mom was raised super country, like shooting rattlesnakes out of a tree and walking barefoot in a creek type of country. And when she was like 18, she moved to a little bit bigger of a city. And when then we came along, me and my brother, and she took us to a creek and she was like, "Oh, watch me, I can walk across these rocks." And then she basically falls into the river. And so my dad looks at her and starts laughing and says, "Girl, you done lost your country."
I done lost my country, where to go? Need to find my roots, soul, heal my soul. Get me out of this city, back to the country, where it really don't matter if you wear your shoes. Stuck here with these country blues. Concrete jungle got me going insane. Traffic round me will make you lose your brain. Can't drive a lick without hitting your brakes. Moving to the city was such a mistake. Everybody sipping on the high-class booze. Everybody working for them red-bottom shoes. I just wanna break on loose, but I'm stuck in the city with the country blues. I done lost my country, where to go? Need to find my roots, soul, heal my soul. Get me out of this city, back to the country, where it really don't matter if you wear your shoes. Stuck here with these country blues.
And we were all like, we have to write that song. And
It's a song. Yeah.
so we did, and it resonates with me, and I feel like it resonates with a lot of people. Like they go to like a bigger city, but they just want to get out and get in touch with nature and like the small town vibes where who lives 3 houses down from you, and you can go ask them for an egg or a cup of milk to bake your cookies or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because now that you're mentioning that, I grew up in a city in Minneapolis, but so it's not a huge city, but it's still a city. And then when I moved to New York City, I worked in New York City for 10 years. And, when I moved back to a smaller town, my wife and I live in a small town in South Jersey near Philadelphia, but, we have, horses around the area, there's cornfields, and, there's nothing better. And I can tell all my listeners, if you've never been out of the city, there's nothing better than to breathe the fresh air of the country. And there's nothing like, starting a fire in the fire pit in the back and watching the stars, which you can't see in the city. So
No.
I tell you that just your talking makes me smile because, I love living in the country. There's nothing better. And, so talk about your roots because, growing up in Tennessee, that's correct, right? You grew up in Tennessee?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So Tennessee obviously is traditionally, country. But, I have friends that live in Tennessee, and they said that there's no place that they'd rather live. And, even somebody in the music industry, obviously Nashville is booming and it has been for several years, and not just for country music, but any genre of music. I think there's a big draw to live there because of the quality of life. So talk about living in Tennessee and talk about the benefits of being there and being an artist there.
I absolutely love the state. I could not imagine living anywhere else other than maybe having a beach house. That would be pretty cool. But the state is amazing. I'm from a really, really small town, about 45 minutes from Nashville. It's getting bigger, but when I first moved here, I think the population was like 2,000. And so it's super small. We have a Dollar General, we have a gas station, and a post office and like a couple odd and end things. But it's super small. But I also am like able to be super close to Nashville because I love that place. Like if I had to pick a city, that's the one I would pick. I love Nashville and I can be there. And but you know, I just got to get away sometimes. I can't stand traffic. I can't stand hearing sirens at 2 o'clock in the morning, driving up and down the street. And so sometimes I just have to unplug and get away. So I love this place. And my family's from a really small town called McMinnville, and I absolutely love it there. And everybody just seems to know each other. And I think that's always what I've loved the most, is it just feels so homey. And you don't get that a lot of times nowadays. Everybody's just like to each their own, but that place, it's just home. You know, everybody knows.
You got neighbors, yeah.
I know your uncle, or I know your grandma. I know.
Yeah.
They all know everything. But the only bad part about that is you do not want bad rumors to spread.
Right. You know everything, literally.
Yes.
Good and bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, and talk about, you know, those growing up in that kind of, you know, environment, because, you know, I understand that you've been singing since you could talk, and also sang in the church. So talk about that community and talk about how, you know, I know a lot of singers that started singing in the church, you know, and I did a lot of gospel music videos when I was, you know, a little younger, and you know, I know what kind of community that can be and how they can foster your growth, you know, as an artist. So, you know, talk about singing in the church.
Yeah, so I started singing. My dad had a ministry, and it wasn't really a church. It was just more like we gather at my house, or we would go to a church that somebody would let us use, or one of the places was an old pet crematory. So we would just meet anywhere and everywhere, and we would have a service. And so that's where I first started singing in front of people. And then in high school, I switched to a small private school, and I was put over the worship team as a worship leader. Talk about terrifying, leading worship in front of all of your peers at your high school. That's so scary. And then after that, I became a worship leader at a church that I used to go to. And that kind of just was where I started. I always knew I loved country music and I loved doing that, but I also have a heart for worship. And so it was an honor to be able to do it. And I was very scared at the time. It made me so nervous every time I got on that stage. I had to remind myself, this is not about you. This is about worship, and this is about other people having an experience with God, and about you having an experience with God. It's not about you. And so I used to write Fearless on my wrist every time before I got on stage, and I ended up getting it tattooed on me because it would just scare me so much. And now I can't imagine not being on a stage. So it really helped me grow as an artist and become more confident in myself.
Talk about influences. What are some of the people you listen to? You know, everybody has influences, and you know, talk about yours and growing up, and even now, like who do you like listening to out there?
So the people that inspire me even more than the artists are always the songwriters. I love Randy Montana and Jesse Alexander and Michael Hardy. Like Nashville's full of amazing songwriters, and they always have inspired me so much, just because country music tells a story, and I think they do that so beautifully, and it's always so well written, and so that really inspires me. And then artist wise, you know, I grew up on Carrie Underwood. She's always had influence on me. And Martina McBride was a huge influence. She got me started loving country music. Miranda Lambert. I love Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all are so great. I don't know.
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of, you know, and we've talked a lot on this show about the evolution of country music and how it's become more mainstream now. And you know, I think really Carrie Underwood was one of the main reasons why it became mainstream when she won American Idol. I think, before that or prior to that, it was a lot of traditional country, like, the Crystal Gales, the people that were coming up, Shania Twain. I think when Shania Twain was really kind of the start of it as well. But, when you think about Carrie Underwood, she kind of brought that kind of rock aspect to country, and more of a younger crowd, I guess, younger audience. And so I think right now, the way it's evolved, it's been amazing, and even people outside of the genre have gone into some country writing and music. And and one of my favorite writers and performers is Jay DeMarcus. Well, Rascal Flatts, one of the 3 Rascal Flatts members that and now he's obviously, they're all on their own, but I really get inspired by his music as well. So country has always been I think important in my household as well. And so it's got to be exciting for you to be in this space right now. The way country has kind of evolved into this more mainstream, platform. So talk about that, and is the streaming, society that we have out there, like Spotify and all the other streaming. I mean, does that make it easier for an independent artist like yourself to release their music, but also release it to not just people here in the United States, but also worldwide?
Yeah, I couldn't have imagined trying to do music as an independent artist 15, 20 years ago, before it was so accessible. That would have been
Yeah,
a whole different ballgame.
for sure.
But now, you have these distributors that, put your music on hundreds and hundreds of platforms with, the click of a button. And I Lost My Country, I think last time I checked, was in like 35 countries across the world. And I would have never imagined, like, when I put that song out, I was like, oh, like, if I can get 500 people to listen to this song, that's going to be great. And I would have never imagined that this many people in these many different countries would hear something that I created, and that me and my group of people worked so hard to create, and that they've heard my voice is just such a crazy thing to think of. And that's just technology.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's kind of funny because, there's a lot of, I know this one artist that, put out music, and, and it really hit in Greece. For whatever reason, it hit in Greece. There's a lot, he has a big fan base in Greece, and he's never been to Greece. So it's just amazing what you can do. And have you ever thought about that down the road? Have you ever thought about maybe spanning out, beyond the United States, and maybe doing like a bar tour and other countries, like maybe the UK or Brazil or something like that? Because country music is huge outside of the United States as well, and believe it or not, Switzerland is a big country music. Germany, and so have you ever thought about maybe doing that down the road? Is that one of your goals, to spread out outside of where we live?
Yeah, I'd say I would love to be able to do that within the next year. Definitely within the next 2 years. That's something that I've been definitely thinking of, and trying to work towards, because I love Europe. I got to go a couple years ago. I have some friends over there, so I got to go see them. And so I think that would be incredible. And, do a 2-for-1, go and play some music, and also see people nearest and dearest to my heart that I don't get to see very often.
What kind of, experience was it when you first stepped on a stage, when you first walked out into that first stage and that first audience? Yeah, talk about that experience. And it's got to be exhilarating to be in front of a group of people, no matter how big or how small that crowd is. How was that for you?
The first time that I ever stepped on a stage doing country music was a singer-songwriter competition where I sang Lost My Country. And to be so honest, I don't even remember it because I was so scared. I have videos that I've watched, but the whole I just remember being so scared. Like, walking out there, it's like my fingers were tingling, my legs were numb. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm so scared. And after that, I don't know, by the end of the performance, it was just like, oh, I got to do that again. Like, that was adrenaline. I need to do that again. Like, I loved that. That was so amazing. And so fear, that was my biggest experience right there, was the fear. And and just falling in love with it at the same time. It was the weirdest feeling.
Yeah,
I don't even know
it's
how.
addicting, I would imagine, to get
Yeah.
that feeling and to connect with the audience and you know, I know that playing in front of small crowds and big crowds can be different on the surface, but you know, you're still sharing your passion and your, you know, your words with another human being, you know, whether it's one person or 50,000 people in an arena. It's got to be just the coolest thing. I've never been on a stage like that, so I can't speak from experience. I've always been behind the scenes, but you know, I've always wondered what people are going through when they first step on a stage for the first time. And you know, that's one thing that I think what you said, I think is true with most artists. You know, it's a fear, but it's kind of an out of body experience in a way. But then, you know, all that fear and you can't wait to get back and do it again. So what is next? I mean, what are you working on right now? Because I know you have, you know, the song that we just spoke about, but there's got to be other ones in the works. So what can we talk about that our listeners can get excited about?
Yeah, so I have a song coming out. I don't have an exact date set, but I'm aiming for the beginning of November. And this song I wrote, oh man, I want to say 3 years ago. I think I was a sophomore or junior in college. And I just graduated in May. So whatever the math is on that. And I wrote this with a friend of mine in a songwriting class that we had at Middle Tennessee State University. And we wanted to write a song that kind of just touched on issues that we saw in our country, and not issues that are like right-wing issues, left-wing issues, because there's already enough division in our country. We don't need more of that.
Yeah.
We want to write about issues that we're just like, people should worry about. Like, this should be something that everybody should be concerned about. And so we wrote this song, and it's called Land of the Free, and I'm super excited for it to come out.
Right hand is up as they swear to us. Lying comes so easy that we start to trust. Their fingers crossed behind their back, collect the ties so they're on the attack. Sending the boys off to do the dirty work, to come back home stained in blood. We sit on Capitol Hills, agreed this freedom that you got, it didn't come free. Turn your back on Big Brother and take back the nation. Start the conversation and be the generation, giving people back the power from corrupt administrations. So much to do, not much time left. This country's going under and it's taking us with it. Take a stand for your own liberty. In this place we call the land of the free.
You know, before we go, I always ask for, you know, advice, you know, from our artists that come on the show for young people that are just getting started. And so what kind of advice can you give to that young girl country singer that's just getting started, or just maybe, you know, is you know, started out like you in the church and you know, singing? So what kind of advice can you give somebody just getting into this industry? Because it's definitely not an easy industry to get into. So what kind of advice can you give early on for yourself? Even what kind of advice do you have?
I would say take every opportunity that you can. Even if it scares you, even if it's, you know, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I would say take it, because you never know what kind of opportunities will lead from doing that. You never know what kind of people you'll connect with, and just to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. You have to be your biggest fan and believe in yourself more than anybody else will, because it is a hard industry, and there's a lot of people that will tear you down in a split second and take advantage of you in a split second. So you have to know that you are capable of it and believe in yourself, and read over every single contract before you sign it.
100%.
For sure.
100%. You know, and then there's another question that I forgot to ask, and I want to ask you about. songwriting in Nashville area. So I know that there's kind of two areas of Nashville, two factions of Nashville. There's like the tourist area where people perform at, I think it's called Broadway, or, a lot of the bars and the main part of Nashville. But the songwriters, the people that are the professionals in Nashville, have like their own little faction of Nashville, like the song where they do the songwriter circles and, where they get together as a group and the professionals, and they'll help songwrite together. What I understand is Nashville is unlike any other, music scene where, songwriters help each other. Like it's a real collaborative town where people help each other and especially in country music. So talk about that. And do you get involved with those songwriter rounds and circles and get together with songwriters as opposed to, which I don't think either one's bad, but from what I understand, there's kind of little two areas like some songwriters and singers don't go to where the tourists are; they go where the songwriters are to work on their craft. Is that true?
Yeah, that's Music Row. It's like 16th Avenue, where the songwriting magic usually happens. And I think co-writing is great. I think there are plenty of songs, even songs of mine, that would not exist if there hadn't been another person in the room to bounce ideas off of, or they say something that inspires you, or you say something and they're like, oh my gosh, I had this experience. We can talk about it. We can write about it. And so there's, countless songs that would not even exist without everybody's different experiences and different ways of saying the same thing. They can take one thing and reword it. And without that, I don't think we'd have a lot of the songs on the radio. And so I think that is a super special thing that Nashville does. I have some friends that I've gotten together with and written several times. I have some people that I met at the songwriting room and we wrote a song and we loved it. And we've stayed in touch since, maybe gotten back together and written songs. So I think it's great. And I love doing that. And songwriter rounds too is something Nashville's really big on. And you'll have 4 songwriters and you'll just go down the row and sing a different song that you wrote. And I love doing those and hearing the stories behind the songs and seeing the face behind, the big songs that you hear on the radio, and you can see the face of the person that actually wrote that. I think that's so cool. And it's not something everybody gets to experience unless they are in the Nashville area.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, how can people find you? How can people find you on, do you have a website and also on social media? So how can our listeners look you up?
Yeah, I have a website that's izzygracemusic.com. And then my Instagram and Facebook is both Izzy Grace Music. And then TikTok, that one's a little different. It's Izzy Grace, ITSIZZYGRACE.
Okay, great. And then before we go, I just wanted to ask this question that I ask of everybody, but when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind when people think of Izzy Grace?
I want people to be able to say, that girl was a good person on the stage and off the stage. I don't want to be 2 different people. And I want to leave behind a catalog of songs that can be heard for many years and people can connect with them. It can help people get emotions going, whether they're good or bad. I think they're all good. And I don't know. I just want to leave the world a little bit better than when I got here.
So that's great. I love that legacy. And, everybody, again, go to izzygracemusic.com and just Google Izzy Grace. You'll see a lot on her, and can't wait to hear the new music coming out. Izzy, and thank you for your time tonight, and come back to the show so we can talk about some of that music that you released after the show airs. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.